Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today and have this conversation with my amazing sister-in-law, Ariela Halevi.
Hi.
So glad to have you here. She's a shamanic energy healer, and she does a lot of work around past lives. And I know I have so many clients who are always asking me to go into their past lives. And while sometimes, Spirit does grant us a sneak peek if it's relevant to the reading and the information they need to know at that time, that's not my specialty. And Ariela is amazing at doing it. And so we thought we would come together today and just have a conversation because we talk about this stuff all the time. We love it.
We do.
And I'm like, wow, people would love to just be a fly on the wall and hear more about insight. And I want to know more about what you know about the past lives, the Akashic records, all things I talk about in What's Your Heaven. And Ariela, I actually put a quote in there about another avenue she's really good at doing, which is ancestral healing. Okay. And that's another podcast for another time, which we will do. But for today, we're talking about past lives. So I'm going to hand it over to you and just we'll just
start talking like we usually do. So what I love about past lives is that they inform this life. And the most important thing, and I think you probably teach this as well, is that not only are past lives important, but it's really, really important to be in this world. Because I think a lot of us get kind of almost addicted to healings and finding information. But I think the reason why we do that, and I know you and I do that too, because we become these explorers, right? Trying to put the pieces and the puzzle pieces together to help us remember exactly what we're supposed to remember here, which is that we are whole. We are one. We are joy. We do have the ability to live this world full of magic and full of spirit and full of joy. So when we tap into past lives, yes, you do have positive past lives, and yes, you do have traumatic past lives and everything in between. And what I find is, what is our intention, right? Like behind looking into those things.
Right. It's information. It's like when we are granted access to a certain past life, because we've all had thousands of past lives.
Right.
And so it's too overwhelming to remember everything. So we're only being shown in any given moment the lifetime relevant to our current lifetime and the lessons we're going through and what we need to know that would be for the highest and best good for our own healing and evolution, right?
Right.
And so it's really amazing when you start getting answers or information. You can get it through doing, an energy healing into a past life. You can get it through dreams or deep meditation. There's a lot of different ways to get past life information.
Yes.
And you definitely seem to have access.
Well, what I love is this idea of entering the quantum field. Right? And so when we enter this field, again, it could be through meditation. It could be through even taking a salt bath and just quiet. The truth is that we're way too busy.
Yes.
And the truth is that we all have access to this energy. We think we don't, and we clutter our world with a lot of noise. And a lot of that is to cover up the pain and the suffering and the issues that we're having. And when we choose to calm down our nervous system and stop some of the noise that's going on in our chaotic world, we do have glimpses and access ourselves to gather information to make sense of this world.
Yes.
And the way that I usually see it, and I know other healers see it differently, but when we enter the quantum field, I usually do enter doing an energy clearing. Because it's the same as, like I said, you want to declutter. And so not only do we want to declutter and calm the noise down on the outside of our world, but we also want to declutter our energy field.
Yeah.
Right? It's so important.
So important. Well, and that's why I regularly get energy healings, because you want to be a pure, clean channel.
Right.
So that you're not unconsciously projecting any of your stuff
Right.
And tainting the information coming through.
Exactly.
Right? And, so let's back up for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So the Akashic records, that's something I think we need to, just for anyone who's not familiar, talk about what those are. Mm-hmm. My understanding is the Akashic records, I was given access to these about 4 or 5 years ago during COVID. I was doing marathon reading, and all of a sudden I was able to tap into people's Akashic records, which are, in my opinion, the way I call it, the energetic cloud in the sky that contains all information regarding any past life, present life, future life that we've lived.
Right.
So it's our soul's, kind of file of everything that we've gone through.
Right.
Right?
Yes. And how I see it is when we enter that quantum field, that space where spirit joins us, right? Mm-hmm. You can feel it when you're there. I see it as a library.
Yes.
And so it's behind somebody's head, like when I'm doing healing. You can kind of see it now.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's a library. And depending on the type of energy healing we're doing and what is going on in your life, the guides will pull out a book. Yes. And then we open the book, and that shows me, I'm really visual, so we're all different in the way that we connect, but I visually usually can see a picture of a past life. Mm-hmm. And that picture is very important for this life that you're living. And it may have to do with your own body or your relationships or how you are in the world here. And so why we do this is that sometimes we have to cut and release energetic cords from that past life, because a lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard this, I've done everything, I've healed so much, and I'm still hanging on to this, and this.
Yeah.
And that's typically when we need to go either into the ancestral field or the past life field.
Right. Yes. And it's so interesting because when I do readings, my guides, when they open a book, I'm like, oh, your Akashic record keeper's here. They're granting me access, because we have to have permission, and I always, it depends on the person.
Right.
They open the book. That's how I see it too.
Yes.
And then from there, I'm given like ages or times in your life, like information to help kind of say, hey, are you between 50 and 54? And the person will say, yes. I'm saying your Akashic record keeper saying you're at a crossroads and you're meant to be dealing with relationship issues.
Right.
And like, oh my God, that's why I came to you for a reading. My relationship's falling apart. And so from there, we're given, that important, invaluable information to say, you're exactly where you need to be.
Right.
This is part of your, your timeline for this lifetime. And from there, knowledge is power, because then you can help them clear the blocks, like you're saying, like where they're stuck, the patterns, whether it's just created from this lifetime or it's just ongoing pattern from past lifetimes, or it's ancestral lineage passed down, the mother line.
Right.
And so how do you take your power back? How do you cleanse, clear, release so that you can be present and co-create your future?
Exactly.
On your terms.
And what I have found, which I'm sure you have found as well, we all dance together in multiple lifetimes, right? That is why we choose the people that we choose as our parents, as our spouses, as our children, because we have danced in these relationships before. And so the key is so when I say cut cords, I don't actually like the idea of cutting. Because what if you're cutting a cord to your kid who's sitting right here, right? So the key for past lives is to actually, sometimes it's to integrate and learn from them and to understand them, right? So you can, like you said, live a healthier whole life here. And so the key is to understand that the past lives, some of them that we've had, are a very important ingredient to some of the essential events that we've had in this life. Right. And when I energetically see it, I see it sometimes as taking the energy that we need to learn, the jewel, right, the diamond from this life, and actually bringing it in to this life.
Yes.
Sometimes you need that tidbit of information or energy or relationship or something from there. And we need to actually ask Spirit to kind of bring it into this life. And it helps your relationships.
Yes, when you can integrate it.
Exactly.
And that's I kind of think the whole point.
It's integration.
It is.
And even when you're doing an energy clearing, you know, I'll do a lot of energy clearings, and then the person will come back to me and they're like, oh, I feel this again. I feel the same stuff again. It doesn't always happen. But we as sovereign beings have to be willing to do the integration and be responsible for our own healing, for our own health and our relationships. And when we start to step up into responsibility in this world, the past lives are like little diamonds, right? And those books open even more. The most thing I think that the universe wants to hear is that we are willing to be accountable and responsible and sovereign in our own body, being, and energy. Yes. And then stuff falls away and integrates much better. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's, you know, really about doing the work. It's being accountable, because once we leave this incarnation, every thought, word, and deed follows us. And once we get onto the other side and we do a life review, we're forced to be fully accountable.
Right.
And so it's doing it, and with the intention, we're not perfect, and we're here to make mistakes and learn and grow.
Right.
But to then, like you said, integrate it so that we don't just keep running in circles.
Right.
And people just keep coming back to you over and over with the same issue again and again and again. Because they haven't taken that jewel or the lesson and fully embodied it.
Yeah, I see the most beautiful healings, especially when people come and say, I have tried everything, right? You know that person is on a path. They are doing the work. And I think it's really, really, I think all of us have those few issues that are just like, why do I keep having to revisit this one issue? Right? Or these couple issues. And I think that's where past life healing really comes in, because depending on the book that we open, so a lot of us want to get rid of those few issues, right? They just stink.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, do I have to revisit this again? And I think the point of a past life healing is to have a lot more compassion for where we came from and where we're going, right? We can do forward timeline healing, and we can do backward healing. And a lot of times I think the universe is asking us to be really compassionate with all the places that we have been and all the things that we've had to endure to get right here.
Yes.
And so when we open those books, it is, like you said, it's a respect. It's like an honor to open those books. And it's not a party trick. It's actually an integration. It's so that you can be whole and walk around this universe, this earth as so whole.
Exactly. Because when we are whole in our best selves, we can then be of service to others.
Right.
Right? That's why we're here, to co-create together, to pay it forward, to use our light to somehow make the world a better place.
Right.
But you have to be a healed healer. Okay?
Exactly.
Well, the truth is we're all in the process of healing.
Right.
So it's a process, or a practice, an everyday practice. But with the intention to show up in our purest form, to do our highest and best work as, you know, on that path of healing and wholeness.
I think that's where so it's a little different than past life healing, but I think, so as you're saying that, what I'm feeling is a lot of us have boundary issues. All of us have boundary issues, right? So a lot of us have boundary issues. And I think when we open these books and we go into the quantum field, we start to learn about our side of the street, right? Whether it is, again, body, relationships, work, health,
finances,
like everything is a boundary. And when I go into these records, there's always a lesson of how we can tidy up our energetic field here, because often we walk around with a lot of our energy portals just kind of open.
Yeah.
Right? Like I call it Swiss cheese in your aura. Right? Like these holes in our auric field, they are not new. They are very ancient and very old. And so energetic boundaries are extremely important when we're working on ourselves and when we're kind of stepping into our sovereignty. So the more clean and clear your field is, the more these past lives make themselves aware. And how do we step into energetic boundaries? Like, how do we step into better boundaries? And I think a big portion of that is to look at our closest relationships and where we are some of us are caretaking, some of us are overdoing, some of us are underdoing. Where is your go-to? And ask yourself, how can I take a step back and clean up that energy?
Yes.
I think it is about clearing yourself daily. I keep seeing salt baths. I think they're really great for clearing the energy field.
And maybe you're seeing it because you and I both rely on those.
We do.
As a way to really release everybody's energy and clean out the chakras.
Right.
Yeah, what I'm seeing right now is, like, for anybody wondering, how do I have better energetic boundaries? A big piece is calling your energy back at the end of the day or at the start of the day from anyone or anything where you may have given it out to or left it. So it could be a conversation you had that you can't get out of your head with your best friend. Or it could be, your spouse, and where you feel like you've absorbed their stuff. And it could be a client that you were working with that, just keeps popping into your consciousness and they're plugged into you. Yeah. And so what that I've found, I will be thinking about a client I haven't worked with in a couple of years and they're heavy on my mind. And that day they reach out saying, I need an appointment.
Right.
Well, on some level, that's great. I picked up on it, but I also was holding them.
Right.
And so it's fine to pick up on it, but then you want to release, because to stay a clear, pure vessel, for me, channel, you a healer, we can't have a sticky bubble. We can't have people hanging out.
Exactly.
You said something about holes in your aura. What I have found is that it's not responsible for me to do readings if I've been drinking the day before.
Yes.
Right? Any drugs or alcohol create a vulnerable state, and it puts holes, which means I can be easily negatively influenced by false light, false beings.
Interference frequencies. That's what I kept getting. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's why I have to then call an Archangel Michael to clear these entities or energies. Right. I have to do my work to make my aura strong and clean and release anything.
Right.
Right? And so that is what you offer people.
Exactly. Exactly. And keeping our relationships clean and clear as much as possible. Right? I always say, like, keeping your side of the street clean and clear as much as possible. So interference frequencies, like, that could be a whole podcast in of itself. But interference frequencies can sometimes, so think about people in your life that you have poor boundaries with, right? Like, I have 4 kids, and there's a couple of them that no matter how many boundaries I put up, they just slip right through. Right? Or like you'll be working with somebody or you'll pass somebody by and you can feel their energy, whereas when you walk down the street, you don't feel his energy, but you can feel her energy. Like, why does that stuff happen? Especially to those close to us. So it's not necessarily interference frequencies. It's a remembering of dancing in a past life with these people. And sometimes it is old wounds and unfinished business with those people in our past lives and our history that we are being asked, because we are so triggered by them. It's not to, sometimes it is to turn away from them, right? Sometimes that's the answer. And sometimes it is to turn towards them energetically. You don't have to do this in physically, but it's to turn towards them and to do the energetic work with that person because you've danced before. Right? So I have one child that I know I've danced before. I mean, all of my kids, but I know I've danced before with this child. And so what I've done, just as an example, I know that I've seen some glimpses of books they've shown me where we have been in different relationships. You know, maybe that's mother-daughter or father-son, or so we all have those different relationships. And what I've done, and this is a beautiful healing, and this is kind of what I do, is we sit in circle with the people that you're triggered by. And we have energetic conversation in the quantum field where I'm doing energy clearing. So I can do it on myself and I do it with other people. I'm doing the energy clearing, but we're having a conversation with that person in spirit.
Yeah.
And we invite spirit in and your angels and your guides. And we clear the field energetically. And we throw it into like the fire that we create. And let spirit take it. And it's amazing how sometimes you don't have to do the work physically with somebody. You don't have to call them and say, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling, I mean, sometimes you do. But a lot of times you can do your own clearing of your past life in the quantum field by having energetic, sacred conversation.
And it's less threatening because the human personality, the ego isn't there resisting and becoming defensive. So often in reading, Spirit will say, you don't need to have that physical conversation.
Right.
But through prayer meditation, call in that person's higher self.
Exactly.
And then meet them with your higher self. And in that quantum field, the healing can occur.
Exactly.
And so that's something you can walk people through.
Right.
Which is really helpful because a lot of us don't know what we're doing. You know, we absolutely don't need anyone to do it. We can do it for ourselves.
Right.
But it is really nice to have a guide. And that is something you've done it with me. And it's been profoundly healing. And then after we worked together, the few weeks or months that followed, it was profound how fast the physical, earthly situation and characters involved started to clear and get up to speed.
Exactly.
Because having, know these situations and people having no knowledge, you and I knew exactly what the intention was, and it was working. So anyways, it's a way to be efficient. It's a way to be intentional from a higher self's point of view to heal, clear, and balance karma or the unfinished business that we brought into this lifetime as part of our soul contract, in relationship to each other.
Definitely. And I would end with, if you feel lost and you feel stuck in how do I move forward, the highest and best good is to offer prayers. Right? And when you don't know what to do, and when you are on your knees and you don't know which way to turn, and you're really having a hard time getting into those past lives, prayer is a huge spiritual tool. It's probably the largest, biggest tool that we have in our toolbox. And prayer can change the world.
Yeah.
And it's so effective. And it's how we get into those past lives too. Cleaning your field, offering up prayer, asking for the highest, and this is what we did before we started this podcast.
Yes.
Right? We saged the whole room. We asked Spirit to be at the center, and then asking Spirit to open those doors and open those books for you.
And show me.
Yeah.
Show me, guide me, help me.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And then let go. Go with the flow.
Right.
And Spirit will reveal what's next steps, what's highest and best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So anyways, I am so grateful for this conversation. And if you feel, this resonates or you feel it's your next step, I highly recommend you reach out to Ariela.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, so good to see you. All right. We're wishing you brightest blessings and all love.